Good evening. Welcome to the April 18th, 2024 Local Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting. The meeting is hereby called to order. Members of the public may attend this meeting in person or may watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. The city manager will provide more details shortly, but please note that appeals may be provided in person here by filling out an information card or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the hearing and indicating you would like to appeal. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in council chambers and the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute, and then you may begin your comment for 3 minutes. Please make sure your camera is on. All appeals must include your full name and address. City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Councilmember McDonald.
Present.
Councilmember Iverson.
Here.
Councilmember Parkhill. Here. And Mayor Mouton.
Here. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Plekish is absent this evening. All right, we will move on to the next order of business. City Manager, if you could please give us all an update of how things will proceed this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'm going to just give a summary of the Local Board of Appeal equalization process, highlight this year's results from a regional level, and then pare it down to Wayzata. And then introduce our city center assessors, and they're going to go through the actual commercial and residential, just kind of how it's gone this year, and go into the actual appeals kind of one by one. And I'm going to put on the PowerPoint first. And okay, before we get into the results or kind of what, how the general evaluations went in Wayzata in the, also in the region, I want to just kind of provide a little bit of background of what this process means and why the city does it this way. Ultimately, just high level, the government receives its property or its revenue in 3 major buckets: sales tax, income tax, and property taxes. Municipalities' primary source of revenue, of course, is property tax. How do we figure out how much revenue can be and should be generated by property taxes? There's 2 big processes. One's at the beginning of the year, one's at the end. At the end of the year is when the taxation rate is approved by the budgeting process, which is a 6-month plus process that the council approves usually in December. And that's based not only on the city, but also the county and the school district, what their budgets are. In addition to that, on the front end of the year is the valuation process. Annually updating each property based on market value determines the share of what each property owner needs to pay. So each of these processes involves public meetings, which property owners are notified through a variety of ways, most commonly through the mail, but we also have done, I think, a better job over the years ensuring that our social media, our portal, our other city kind of online communications are getting the word out, not only about the budget process, but this process this time around when it comes to valuations and the ability for property owners to appeal and work with our assessors on the valuation of their properties. So cities are able to, generally cities in Minnesota are able to conduct valuations in 2 different ways. To do it in-house or contract for city services as the assessors are appropriately licensed. We have selected the Hennepin County to run our assessment services. And tonight here we have Melody Devine, who is our commercial appraiser, as well as Mike Smearden, who is our residential appraiser. And I think just helping out in general is Shane Larson. On the residential side or just general? Residential, okay. So there are representatives who are really working with the residents to ensure that we have the evaluation appropriately, and then also making recommendations to council. So now I'm just going to go in real briefly about just what the city of Wayzata experienced with this year's appraisal or evaluation process. If you remember, of course, the last couple of years, very high valuations, increases throughout not only the lake area, but especially Wayzata in the teens. We had some properties over the last 2 years more than, in the 20, 30%. Last year's valuation, I think we had over 100 properties that we went through over the course of 2 meetings. So based on this year's overall evaluations, which are significantly lower, as a result, we have less overall valuation appeals tonight to consider. But just real quickly, you can see overall the net growth in valuations. You see apartments pretty stable, a little bit of a decrease actually, and then commercial went up, and residential and industrial are kind of a fair a rate that's equivalent to inflation. The graph on the left there isn't related to increases at all. That's actually related to those different types of land use or uses, and it's relation to what part of the tax base they represent. So if you see the 76.0%, that's all the residential tax base. Commercial is about 16.4, an apartment is 7.6. We have one industrial building in town that's considered an industrial, and that's the value that is minimal, or maybe it doesn't even have a value because it's a CenturyLink, so kind of a quasi-public land. So regardless, it's minimal, if anything, for industrial. But to reiterate, on the right is what we saw this year with overall growth. Compare that to the county. You can see county-wide was 1.1%, and really suburban was a little bit higher than that, but it was brought down by Minneapolis, which had a negative 2.6%. So you compare those numbers with the city of Wayzata, were higher than countywide, and even with all of our suburban counterparts as well. Looking a little bit more closely into the lake region, you can see kind of varied overall increases and some decreases throughout the Lake Minnetonka area. If there's any specific questions that the board has, I'm sure Mr. Smerdon would be happy to respond. So getting back to process for tonight's hearing. First step is to review the most current residential and commercial appeal list from the assessor. Mr. Smerdon is going to go through that, and Ms. Devine on the commercial property, commercial properties. After that's done, then we will ask if there's any residential property owners who are not already logged in or contacted the assessor to come forward and enter their property on the list of appeals. I think we have that. Do we have Ms. Learvig's got that sheet. And then we'll ultimately ask if anyone wants to come up and appeal their property that we haven't heard from before. The different types of appeals that we really are considering tonight, one are the completed ones that there's already been consensus or concurrence on, but was received with after the deadline when it can be just done administratively. Those are pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on. Mr. Smerdon and Ms. Devine will go through those. Those can be done immediately and we can move on. The two other types are the ones that usually take considerably more time. One is when a review has been completed. However, there is a difference in valuation in terms of what the assessors believe the valuation should be versus the property owner, and that's where the discussion takes place. And then the other kind of status of appeals are the ones that we've received, but there hasn't been any time based on when we received it, or just we haven't been able to get into the property where there's not complete information. So however we end up tonight, there's likely going to need to be either more time in another meeting to consider, the ones that we need more information, or another option for the council or for the board is to ultimately relay those appeals that we don't have all the information to the county for consideration. Typically, we've had 2 meetings where the first one we listen to them all, and the second one we actually make determinations. We've done that primarily because we've had a lot lately. So it's really up to the council how they want to proceed after tonight. So before introduce Ms. Devine and Mr. Smearden, is there any questions regarding the process and kind of what our goals are here tonight?
Questions from the board?
No.
No? All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think Mr. Smearden has a few other comments just about this process too before we get into the actual appeals.
Yep, I just wanted to read a few spots from the local Board of Appeals and Equalization Handbook. So I know we have a couple of trained members. You guys should have known this, should see this. For everybody else, this might be new, but I think it's really important because it gets down to the role of the board and what the board is supposed to be doing. So the Board of Appeal and Equalization has the authority to change the valuation or classification of a property for the current assessment year. Taxes or prior year assessments are not within the jurisdiction of the board. Any decisions made by the board must be supported by facts and Minnesota law. The board must make informed decisions and ensure all taxpayers are treated fairly and uniformly. The goal of the board is to determine market value. Kind of a layman's term, a market value is the price that would tend to prevail under typical, normal, competitive, open market conditions. The board can reduce the value of the property. The board can increase the value of the property. The board can affirm either the recommendation or the original value. The board can't consider prior year assessments, and the board can't reduce the aggregate assessment by more than 1%. That's the total value of the property. You can't reduce it more than that 1%. Member of the board can't make changes to a property in which he or she has a conflict of interest or a financial interest. The local board can't make changes benefiting a property owner who refuses entry by the assessor. Appeals must be substantiated by facts, and then property owners should keep in mind that taxes are not the issue. Excuse me. As board members, you should be objective and be sure that any changes are based on facts. Do not make recommended changes without any supporting documentation. So the assessor compares the property to actual sales of similar properties in the area to determine the estimated market value of the property. Last, it's assumed that the assessor has properly valued and classified all the property within the jurisdiction. The burden of proof rests with the property owner, who must present factual evidence to disprove the assessor's value or classification. Kind of the highlights from that manual.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Smearden, from the board? No? All right. I would just ask if anybody is in the room that would like to appeal that has not already provided their name and address, to please go ahead and do so at this time. We'll go ahead and start with Ms. Devine and our commercial properties. I know that we have a few that we need to address. Yep. So if we could go through those one at a time, well, maybe the first one, and then we can take the next 3 kind of as a group, since they're all the same property owner.
Sure.
Fine.
I have one apartment property that's going to require a vote on the concurrence. Teresa Cornelison, the appraiser from our office who handles the apartments, met with the owner of Highcroft Manor. The address is 101 PV Lane. Do you need the PID read out as well?
I think just the address would be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
They contacted our office regarding the increase on the value from $6,193,000 in 2023 to $6,884,000 for the 2024 assessment. She did meet with the representative. She inspected the property, and she did a review, and they agreed to a value reduction to $6,193,000. Since that occurred within the 10-day window, it does require a vote by the board.
So they do agree?
The property owner has agreed, and I don't believe they're here this evening.
Okay. Very good. If we could get that back up on the screen, please. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation for 101 PV Lane to $6,193,000?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
Move on.
I have 4 properties now, which are up on the screen. The first one is the Holiday Station Store that's located at 1325 Wayzata Boulevard. A tax representative with Delta Property Tax Advisors out of Texas has filed appeals on all of the Holiday Station stores in the county. With this individual property, they have not contacted us for an inspection, so we would recommend that the board just vote to continue this appeal to the county board. So you would just need to sustain the existing value, which is at $1,889,000.
Okay. Would someone make a motion to sustain the existing value, or the current value of $1,889,000 for the property at 1325 Wayzata Boulevard?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and the next 3 properties, Lowell Zitzloff contacted our office. If you could go back one slide. That one, yes. Contacted our office back in earlier April. It was within the 10-day window that I talked with him. He wanted a review of 3 properties, was concerned about, one of them had 2 of them had an increase. The 201 Lake Street did not, but he was still concerned about the value on that one. I did send him an email requesting information and an inspection, did not hear back. I did talk with him this week, and he resent my email, and I did hear back from his son today. So what I would like to do is have the board vote to sustain the values so we can continue discussions with the property owner at the county board level.
Do we have the values for each of the
Yes.
properties?
So 201 Lake Street is at $7,609,000. 305 Lake Street is at $15,050,000.
$15,050,000?
Correct. 15050,000. And then 315 Lake Street is at $16,960,000.
Just to confirm, the property at 305 Lake Street East, I have at $15,050,000.
Correct.
Okay. There are a lot of 5s and a lot of 0s.
Understood.
All right. May I have a motion to sustain the values of 201 Lake Street East at $7,609,000, 305 Lake Street East at $15,050,000, and 315 Lake Street East at $16,960,000?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, I've got 2 more that just came to our attention in the last day. These are not a value change. This is an administrative correction that needs to be made to the classification. The actual classification will not change. It's what we call a contiguous indicator that's applied to the tax parcel subrecord that allows this parcel, these two parcels, to get the discounted tax rate on a portion of their assessed value. And that indicator needs to be removed on both of these parcels. It was accidentally put in place this year. I'll read the first one. It's 294 Grove Lane East. It's the Boatworks property. And the other one is 1000 Eastman Lane, Wayzata Yacht Club property. That's Eastman Lane. So what I'm asking is that the board vote to remove the contiguous indicator from sub-record 3 of the 294 Grove Street parcel, or Grove Lane parcel, and then remove the contiguous indicator from sub-record 1 of the 1000 Eastman Lane parcel.
So sub-record 3 for Grove Lane and sub-record 1 for Eastman Lane.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to give this my best shot.
Little confusing.
So we need a motion. Can we do one motion for both, or no, let's do two motions. All right, first motion to remove the contiguous indicator sub-record 3
From sub-record 3.
from sub-record 3, thank you, for 294 Grove Lane East.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Tie, it's fine.
Okay, Councilmember McDonald seconded that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. We'll move on to the next motion, which is to remove the contiguous indicator from sub-record 1 for 1000 Eastman Lane.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second?
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes as well.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. All right, so then moving on to residential properties. We have a number here that are outlined, so why don't we go through each of these, starting at the top? These are the ones where the county assessor's office and the property owner are in agreement with the assessor's recommendation in the right-hand column. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Wonderful. All right, so our first property is 176 Babcock Lane West. And it looks like, Mr. Smearden, your office has a recommendation, a revised amount of $562,000.
That's correct.
All right. With someone, and the property owner is in agreement with that revised amount. You've spoken to them?
I haven't heard back from them.
Okay.
I've left 2 messages and,
Okay.
yeah, that's all I can do, I guess.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for the clarification. And would someone care to make a motion to accept the assessor's recommendation of $562,000 for 176 Babcock Lane West?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And we'll move on to 382 Bovee Road with an assessor's recommendation of $2,233,000. Mr. Smearden, any additional information to provide?
I had emailed the owner, and he responded that he felt it was still a little high.
Okay.
And left it at that, but I don't know what he would look like. I only emailed him, so I don't know that he's here.
Okay, very good. Is a representative of 382 Bovee Road here this evening? No, then I would take a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation of $2,233,000 for the property at 382 Bovee Road.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. In a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion passes. Next, we have the property at 736 Whitston Circle with an assessor's recommendation of $3,211,000. Mr. Smearden.
This is one where I did talk to the owner and pretty much had the same response. He'd like it to be lower. But that's all he really said, so.
Very good, thank you. Is anyone here this evening representing the property at 736 Whitston Circle? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation of $3,211,000 for the property at 736 Whitston Circle.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next property is 121 Westwood Lane South. We have an assessor's recommendation of $1,731,000. Mr. Smearden.
I spoke to the owner and same thing, he's got concerns, it's still a little high, but he said he was accepting of the value.
Very good, thank you. All right, then would someone care to make the motion to accept this assessor's recommendation of $1,731,000 for the property at 121 Westwood Lane South?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. It's been first and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next property is 621 Ferndale Road West with an assessor's recommended value of $5,726,000. Mr. Smearden.
I did speak to the owner and he concurred with that value.
Excellent. And we'll need a motion to approve the assessor's recommended value of $5,726,000 for the property at 621 Ferndale Road West.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. All right, the next property is 101 Ferndale Road South with an assessor's recommended valuation of $1,631,900. Mr. Smearden?
I also spoke to this owner and he concurs as well.
Excellent. We'll need a motion to approve the assessor's recommended value of $1,631,900 for the property of 101 Ferndale Road South.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. All right, the next one, I have to admit, I've never heard of this street in Wayzata. Is that a new street we have that nobody told us about?
I think it's basically a little stub of a road base. Is it LaSalle?
Yeah, it comes right off of LaSalle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Never.
Looks like a driveway.
see, you learn something new every day. Okay. And so I assume it's pronounced Lasher?
Let's go with that.
All right, perfect. 305 Lasher Street, an assessor's recommended valuation of $1,128,000. Mr. Smearden.
And the owner concurs with this one.
Excellent. So we'll need a motion to approve the assessor's recommended valuation of $1,128,000 for 305 Lasher Street.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Which takes us to 310 PV Road with an assessor's recommended valuation of $1,368,000.
And the owner concurs with this one as well.
Excellent. Well, excuse me. That's okay. It's just hard to focus. All right, so we're at 310 PV Road, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we'll need a motion to accept the assessor's recommended valuation of $1,368,000 for 310 PV Road.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have 145 PV Lane with an assessor's recommended valuation of $690,400.
And the owner's right there nodding at me that it's okay.
Okay, fantastic. That's great to hear. Very good. Would owner doesn't have any further statements or comments to make on the property? Okay. No, okay. For the record, the owner did say no. So if we could have a motion, please, to accept the assessor's recommended valuation of $690,400 for 145 PV Lane.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have 1610 Locust Hills Place, assessor's recommended valuation of $2,900,000.
I think you skipped 1220 LaSalle.
Oh, I did. Yes, thank you very much. All right, we'll move up to 1220 LaSalle. It says duplex, and we have an assessor's recommended valuation of $704,000. Mr. Smearden.
Yep, and the owner concurs with that.
Excellent. So is duplex just indicating the type of property that it is?
Yeah, that was probably a note I should have taken off of there, but it was more for me to point
Okay.
out that it's a duplex and not a single-family home.
All right, very good. So the motion will be to accept the assessor's recommended valuation of $704,000 for 1220 LaSalle.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, which now takes us to 1610 Locust Hills Place with an assessor's recommended valuation of $2,900,000. Mr. Smearden.
Yep, and the owner concurred with that.
Excellent. So the motion would be to approve valuation recommended by the assessor of $2,900,000 for 1610 Locust Hills Place.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have an assessor's recommended valuation of $3,254,000 for the property located at 1590 Locust Hills Circle.
And the owner concurs with this one as well.
Very good. We'll need a motion for the property at 1590 Locust Hills Circle with an assessor's recommended valuation of $3,254,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And the last on this list is assessor's recommended valuation of $3,033,000 for the property located at 1630 Locust Hills Place. Mr. Smearden.
And when I talked to the owner, he said, we're good. So I took that to mean as a concurrence.
Okay, I would say so. Very good. So the motion then would be to approve the assessor's recommended valuation of $3,033,000, for the property located at 1630 Locust Hills Place.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, so those are all of the properties where we have agreement. Leaves us two remaining buckets to address. So we have a number of people that are here this evening. If I could just see some nods of heads for those that have signed in and provided your name and address. It looks like everybody who is here who would like to speak and appeal. All right, very good. So, Ms. Learvig, City Clerk, for those who have provided their names, do any of those individuals appear on the list below?
I'm sorry, ask me again, Mayor.
For those who signed in this evening,
Oh.
are they on the bottom? Oh, yes. Okay. That's okay. We really should think about having some music playing in the background while we wait in between.
Perhaps
Hold
our city
music.
attorney can sing something for us.
Sing us a little song. Probably better him than me.
For sure.
I'm not feeling the love. That's okay.
I could
I
clear
sang-
a room if I started singing.
I will say, Madam Mayor, it's great to see our residents in the community room. It's nice to. A lot of times, our council meetings aren't. Some of them are well attended, some of them are not. But it's good to see faces in here.
It is. It is.
We'll take any reason for it.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. So we have a number. Could I see just raise your hand, how many of you are here regarding your properties at Locust Hills? Okay. And so that's probably a number of the ones that we have on the list here below.
Yeah.
So maybe Ms. Lervik, could you run through the list verbally in terms of who has signed in?
Okay.
And we'll just start at the top of the list. If you're on this bottom half of the list, we will get to you. Please don't worry. We will definitely figure that out. So who's the first person on the list?
Sorry, Mayor.
That's okay.
I think it says Laurel Anthony, 145 PV Lane. She is not on the list.
Okay.
We've already approved her appeal.
Oh, very good. All right, second on the list.
Marilee Babcock, 337 Reno Street.
All right, she just gave me the high sign. She has nothing to say. All right, moving on. Number 3.
Scott Mann, 460 Carpenter's Point, and he is here and on the list.
Oh, just a moment. Oh, so I'd love to hear from you, but I'm going to need you to come up to the microphone so that we can get you on the record and our vast viewing audience can hear everything you have to say. Good evening. I need your. Yes. Could you, pardon me for interrupting, could you adjust your microphone up just a little bit for me? Could we adjust?
Fred's doing it.
Representative, that we want to have him talk first, and each of us use our 3 minutes. But I think he can kind of start, and then we'll each of us.
You turn it on?
Somebody needs to turn that mic on. Crazy, our houses have gone up 30%, and actually my house is 70% higher in 3 years.
Okay, so you have,
Tim Hayden.
so you have a representative who's going to be representing and appealing on behalf of the entire group, or is?
Some people.
Well, okay, so just, you guys are gonna have to figure out
Thank
who's
you.
thank you. You guys are gonna have to figure out who's representing whom. That's not for us to decide. We're here to hear your appeal.
I think what we'd like to do is just have him do an introductory thing of it, and then I'll come back up.
Yes, so here's what we know with regard to the properties of at Locust Hills, and maybe this is gonna keep things pretty short and sweet. We can't make a decision on your property this evening if you have not had an inspection by the assessor. So our hands are tied in that respect. So we can deal with those pretty quickly, and we, certainly, if you would like to speak, that's fine, but we're not going to be able to make any changes until such time as you schedule some time with the assessor for him to come and do the inspection. So with that being said, I would be happy to hear your appeal. You'll have to hand that to the city manager, please.
First, I'm amazed that, we look up here and we see that the increases for Wayzata is 3.6, when my house this year was over 30% increased. Everybody in Locust Hills is very highly increased. And it's crazy for me because when we bought our house was on the market for over a year. We bought it, I thought, at a decent deal. But my value of my house has gone up over 70% in 3 years. I lived at Lake the Isles for 15 years, and my house went up 20%. And so I'm amazed at this.
And I'm sorry,
What I
sir.
did-
Your address again, please?
460 Carpenter's Point.
Okay, thank you.
So I decided this year, and I still am amazed at the valuation that the appraiser came up, but I had an appraiser doing the appraisal who actually did my house when I bought it, plus another house that's really has a high value in our neighborhood. And you'll see it came at $3,280,000, I guess. And I think that's high, but I mean, that's an appraisal on my house.
So this is the 460 Carpenter's Point, that's the $3,398,300? No, that's quite all right.
I was looking at the appraisal. This is the first time I've seen it, so just wanted to digest it a little bit. Yeah, his original valuation is $3,398,300.
Okay. And so, sorry, we lost our screens here. We'll just wait to get it back. So have you been in touch with the
I
assessor's
haven't
office?
touched him, but it doesn't do you any good, as my neighbors will tell you. He comes in, our house hasn't changed at all, but the valuation goes up, and, he uses one house in our neighborhood kind of for the valuation. So I decided I'm going to hire an appraiser to do it, who actually has done other houses in Wayzata and in our neighborhood.
So I'm curious, not that it has any bearing, have you had an opportunity, what do you need, sir, to,
I went through
Provide the
this property last year, so this isn't one that I feel like I need to go through. There are a bunch of them in this neighborhood that I've never been in, and those are the ones that I really need to go through.
sure.
My house hasn't changed, so.
And just to point out, we use more than one sale. We actually use these 3 sales that are in the appraisal. I
Okay.
mean, and any competent appraiser would use those 3 and not really go anywhere else due to the uniqueness of Locust Hills.
So it seems like it's competent that was done, if you use their 3 comparables.
And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, okay, but his value is less than yours.
An appraisal's an opinion of value. You're not gonna have 2 appraisers come out, look at a house, and come in with the same value. It just doesn't happen. So the differences come down to, the adjustments that an individual appraiser would make due to the differences.
Out of curiosity, the difference between when was that appraisal done? And
It was
what is
done
the
on April
difference?
4th,
Just a moment, please.
Yeah, it was done April 6th.
the 6th, okay.
And the value that the appraiser came up with there?
$3,284,000.
3 million, well, this one says 3,280,000.
Okay,
280, okay. Well, I guess I was wrong.
okay. All right. But your recommendation is the $3,398,300. Is that correct, Mr. Smearden?
That is correct.
Okay. Very good. Council, any questions of the property owner or of Mr. Smearden?
I have one, Mr. Smearden.
Yes,
Mayor?
Councilmember Iverson.
When I'm looking at the documents that we got, that on 420 Carpenter Street, it's a comparison of 23 to 24. The land value looks like it went up about 400,000, and the home went up about $100,000. Explain to me why the home value increased that much. Did he make improvements to the property?
For this property?
Yes.
No, not that I know of. It's based, you could go back to, it's based on macroeconomic trends. Last year, the average sale price in this neighborhood was about 2.8, 2.9. This year, the average sale price is 3.5. We had a sale at 1640 Locust Hills that sold in July of 2022. It also sold again in July of 2023, 17% over the 2022 sale price. That is considered a paired sale. That is the best way to indicate market growth. And so that is behind the increase.
There's also a house that's been on the market, just was taken off, and Locust Hill has been on the market 3 or 4 months, didn't sell at lesser square footage than my house.
And I would say based on that house is overvalued for the listing. We don't have it assessed at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Yes, Councilmember Parkin.
Mr. Sheridan, I'm wondering, you've just got this appraisal, I know. Do you know any of the assumptions that you made might be different from the one on that appraisal? Can you see those adjustments quickly? We're $80,000 apart here, and it's, whatever it is, excuse me, 120,000 apart, so
I can look and see what I did.
I'm just wondering if there is,
Well, the one house on the end house is actually a house that was completely remodeled with $1 million with remodeling, plus he bought it with all of his furniture included in it too. And which, I think you looked at that house again.
I did look at that house, and the value of the personal property has ranged anywhere from $1 to $250,000, depending on who we talk to. I tend to lean towards the listing agent that said they paid $65,000 more than the list price, and that was contributed to the personal property. But yes, he did buy, I want to say in the personal property addendum, there's like 200 lines. It's as detailed down to the game of Scrabble.
And also, that house was completely redone. I mean, they spent $1 million on that house. My house hasn't been done since it was built.
Okay,
So it's very similar size and everything else. So
and I think we considered that last year.
maybe. I don't want to be
when
up
you
here
were
every
here.
time. I'm amazed I have to be up here for the 3rd year. I'm missing my grandson's birthday and everything. So,
So my comment to the
Yes.
$1 million improvement is you can put $1 million into a home, you're not going to get $1 million back. A lot of that money goes into the planning, the architects, the demolition, the builder profit. You're going to get a fraction of that out.
but you
Yes.
get a fraction.
But you get a fraction.
You get
And
a good percentage.
Sir, yeah, I need
Yeah,
you to allow him to speak, please. Thank you.
and that house is assessed at more than this.
Okay. Very good. Well, what's before us this evening, thank you, sir, is that we have the assessor, Mr. Smearden, with a recommendation of $3,398,300 for the property at 460 Carpenter's Point. The homeowner, however, does not agree with that valuation. You've provided an appraisal. Are you contending that that's the value that your
I think it's worth
taxes-
less, but I'll accept that value.
Less than your appraised value?
Yeah, I don't know how it would ever sell for. My house is like a townhouse. It's 2,000 square feet on the first floor.
So is that, if you were to go get financing, would you,
This is the appraisal that you use. This is from a bank.
so if someone
Bank
offered to buy
appraiser,
your
too.
house for less than, you're saying it's less than the appraised
Well,
value, would
I'm
you
saying
accept a
I'll
lesser
accept
amount?
this amount, but I'm not going to accept the $3.4 million appraisal. I mean, it's not worth that much.
If someone offered you $3 million for your house, would you take it?
I'll sell it to you for, $3 million too, and you can sell it again, make $200,000. I'll sell it for $3 million to you. How's
So
that?
it could be worth $3 million is what I think I just heard you say. Well, all right, we have a decision to make here as a board. Any thoughts from the board? Because we do have to then move on to these other folks that are here for
Can I make
their
one-
properties as
Can
well.
I make a couple of clarifying comments?
Yes, please.
The client listed on the appraisal is the owner. It's not done for a bank. And his property is 2,300 square feet on the main floor, not 2,000.
Oh, okay, well, includes the patio, sorry.
No, it doesn't include the patio. That's the living area.
So, I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
It's 2,355 square feet,
On the first floor, including the porches.
not including the porches.
Oh, I think, okay.
Okay. Well, sir, we can only go off of what.
I know,
The
that's fine.
appraisal you provided. That's very detailed and clear in terms of square footage for a property. So if you're contending your appraisal is incorrect,
No, I'm not.
okay. Thank you. Council, or board, pardon me, we need to make a decision as to whether we keep the value at the assessor's recommended value, or if there is a different number that the council feels is appropriate based on the information we have here this evening. Councilmember McDonald.
Thanks, Mayor. If Councilmember Parkhill's math is correct, $120,000 difference between the two,
About, yeah,
About.
118.
the assessed value and the owner-provided appraisal, I would be comfortable sort of splitting that difference and taking into account what our county assessor says and also the homeowner's provided appraisal.
So that would be a revision. So $3,368,300. Is that,
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
okay, thank you. $3,360,000. Any other thoughts on the matter?
Can I have another question for the Hennepin County? We have these attachments that we got, and I'm looking at the attachments of the land value of 23 versus 24. And the total I see on my sheet is $3,287,300. So it's different than what's on your recommendation.
Different property.
So you-
What's four, I'm sorry, I thought it was 460.
There's the force.
Yep, it's exactly the same.
Glad I could help.
Mystery
I
solved.
switched my 2 and 6 around.
All right. So Councilmember McDonald did propose a different valuation based on the information we've received here this evening. That revised amount would be $3,368,300. How does the rest of the board feel about that? Or is there a different proposal on the table?
Can I talk at all?
I would be okay to go with the appraised value, the new appraised value.
Okay.
So drop it 120,000 or 118 something.
Okay.
And Mayor, I actually would support that too, based off of the fact that you were here last year and that it has been a very high percentage of increases year after year. And so I would be comfortable supporting that as well, the assessed value.
And is this, did we just get the appraisal today here at the meeting?
Yes, this is the first time I've seen it.
Okay. I would, having not seen it, and only allowing the county assessor 5-10 minutes on the spot, sir, please.
Okay, I
We've
got
given
one
you
thing
an
to say about my assessor, the thing.
Sir,
person.
we've
Okay.
given you an opportunity to speak. Please allow me to speak. I am leaning, if in any direction, in the direction that Councilmember McDonald proposed of splitting the difference. It is, I think it is certainly incumbent. We've given a month when the notices went out. to have this information provided to the assessor to be able to review it in a timely manner. And so to do so on the spot makes me very uncomfortable. So if nothing else, just given the information we've received this evening, I'm leaning more towards splitting the difference between the two, and certainly not having seen it. So I know what you're going to say. If we have a split vote, no, please, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't remember the value, but my quick calculation is splitting the difference is 3,339,150.
3,339, sorry?
3,339,150.
150, okay. All right, Mr. Mann, you had something further you wanted to say?
The assessor told me when I told him I was going to get an appraisal done, he said, don't do that. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. And that's why I didn't give it to him before. So he told me not to do an appraisal.
Well,
My comment for every homeowner is if that's what you feel you need
That's
to
why.
do. But I don't want to have a homeowner feel like they're compelled to go spend, depending on the property, anywhere from $500 to $1,500 to get an appraisal.
When your taxes are going up $10,000, I think you'd spend $500.
sir, I really do need you to.
I will. I'm sorry.
Curb the comments and allow people to speak uninterrupted. Okay,
And that goes with my comment that it's personal choice for the homeowner.
absolutely.
I would never say, I'm not going to look at it, or I'm not going to take it into account. I absolutely will. I'm just not going to say that that's what your next step would be.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. All right, so splitting the difference gets us to $3,339,150. So now, City Attorney, if we were not in agreement as a board with a proposal that might be before us, we don't have an official motion, what is the outcome?
The short answer, Madam Mayor, is I think it would just go on to the county, but I would encourage you to seek consensus among your board.
Okay, very good. But if we do not, and it's a split vote, then the motion would fail, and we would be,
I think the assessor's value would go on to the county.
would go on to the county.
But Madam Mayor, I think you'd still have to vote for it to go onto the county.
At the end of the meeting, it would.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the valuation wouldn't change as a result of the board's action here.
So we're not doing two votes, one to, I think what I heard the city manager say is we would have to take a separate vote on that property if the motion failed for it to go on to the county.
That's my understanding.
I think if you, if a motion to change the assessed value does not pass, this would move on to the county, the assessed value. Because in other words, you wouldn't be able to take action here at the local level because it would be a 2-2 vote.
Right.
And so the assessor's value would be then heard by the county.
Okay, very good. And that's a good reminder for everybody here this evening that regardless of our decision or if we're unable to act, the fact that you are lodging an appeal preserves your right to be able to go on to the county and make your argument and present your evidence to them. Okay,
Madam Mayor, can I
yes,
say one thing?
Mr. Smirnin.
Total values are supposed to be rounded to $100. So if you guys want to go to $3,339,100 instead of $150.
Oh, very good. Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Sorry, what was the number?
Splitting the difference between the appraisal you provided and the assessor's recommended value would bring us to $3,339,100. $50 less than what the city manager had, his calculations provided for. So, board, any further thoughts?
You know, I have nothing other to go on other than Mr. Schmurden's thoughts and Mr. Mann's appraiser's thoughts, but I just feel like we had a good second look at it by somebody, and it's pretty close to where we were. I don't think it's unreasonable to meet the taxpayer where he needs to be met.
Okay. Same, Councilmember Anderson?
When I look at what happened from 23 to 24, it's a large increase again. And without having made significant improvements, and I understand it has to do with the sale of properties in the area, I get that, but it continues to be a concern of mine to see these increases year after year.
It's the blessing and the curse of being
Yes, it
in
is.
a popular area. All right.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
We're supposed to be deciding market value, not change in value. I just want to make that pretty clear.
Yeah.
That's a very important distinction, and it's going to come up with all these Locust Hills properties.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, with that information and that criteria for what we're supposed to be basing our decision on, if people have come and purchased homes in that area, there will, of course, be slight differences between one home and another. We understand that. These aren't tract homes that are all built exactly the same. But be that as it may, I am leaning towards accepting the assessor's recommendation and preserving rights to be able to go to the county with your documentation and your evidence, and allowing the process to roll it that way. So I would entertain a motion by whomever, and in whatever form you see fit, because we're kind of split here.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to have a new value at 460 Carpenter's Point to be $3,339,100.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Can I have a point of clarification?
You certainly may.
If we approve the lesser amount that Councilman McDonald is approving, they still can go on to the county, right?
I don't,
Absolutely.
oh, they can.
Yeah, regardless of the outcome of this meeting, somebody can still go to the County Board of Appeals.
Perfect.
They just need to attend or show up as an appearance, on the list from calling earlier in order to do that.
Okay, so I will second that motion.
Very good. Councilmember Perkill, would you bend your microphone down just a little bit? Thank you. All right, so we have a first and a second for the property at 460 Carpenter's Point with a revised valuation as proposed by Councilmember McDonald of $3,339,100. Any further discussion?
With the clarification that the homeowner can go on with the county, I will make this a recommendation as well.
Okay, very good. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion passes. All right. So next on the list, Ms. Learvig,
Sorry for the pronunciation, Bondi?
could we get your mic turned on, please? That's okay.
Ravi Bondi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, at 1429 Holdridge.
All right, very good.
Mr. Bondi just called today, so we need time to have an inspection with the Hennepin County.
Okay, very good. So Mr. Bondi is here this evening. He represents the property at 1429 Holdridge Circle. My recommendation is that we vote to, that we recommend you work with the county assessor's office for an inspection, but we'll, pass this on to the county for your appeal. So it'll preserve your right to do so. Is that-
That'll work.
Madam Mayor, I just clarify, I think it probably is good because there's a lot on here that we haven't had the ability to review or inspect. So for those type, the council should probably confirm whether those would just go on to the county or we'd have a reconvene and decide
Well,
down the
no.
road. Just to clarify, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, we're not making a decision on 1429 Holdridge, so that's going to go on to the county. So what we can do is to vote. I don't think we were planning, my recommendation is that these all go to the county. That we're not reconvening if we've had a month to do this. And so if we're getting emails today, or we got an email last week, you know, there's plenty of time to get to the county. So that's my recommendation for, I don't know, yes, city attorney.
Madam Mayor, I hear you on that, and I'd just ask the county assessor, would you recommend that the board vote to affirm your recommendation on those, which would preserve the property owner's right to appeal to the county? Is that the procedural?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so, Madam Mayor, did you get that? I think you can, on these properties that either need an inspection or the assessor needs more information, you can vote to affirm the assessor's recommendation, which would preserve the right to appeal to the county.
So if that's the case, then if I just read out, I have a list of properties here that all need an inspection. If I read out those addresses for a motion, and we vote in favor of the assessor's recommendation, we're preserving their right to go on to the county. Okay, so let's do that. For clarification, 510 Locust Hills Drive, we don't have a notation next to that. Does that require an inspection?
Nope, I went through that one. I left a voicemail for the owner today.
Okay,
And actually, my recommendation on that would be to lower it to $3,450,000. And most of that is due to the personal property that I didn't know about when they purchased the property.
okay. So if we affirm that one, they can still go to the county and appeal that, since we haven't had a chance to hear back. All right, what about the property at 134, is that 1340 LaSalle Street? 1,084,000?
You know what, I believe it is. I think that's a typo.
Yeah, because we have 1340 on our packet. Okay.
But the owner's in the audience.
Excellent. Hello. Does that need to be inspected?
Nope, I went through that, and there's a very, very small recommendation on there. We had a shed that was contributing value, and that
Okay.
it should.
Let's put that one off to the side. You had an inspection of 425 Carpenter's Point. That was inspected on Thursday, but you have not had sufficient time to review that. Is that correct?
Yep, I was there at 10 o'clock today. Had a very nice discussion with the homeowner.
Oh, literally this Thursday, today?
Yeah, today,
Thursday.
this
Oh,
morning.
okay. All right. Is the property owner of 425 Carpenters here? Yes, you're here. In a moment, we're just going to go through the list, and then I will call you. I just want to make sure everybody's kind of in a different state of where we're at. All right. We've got that one. What about the 501 Bushway Road? Plus
Yeah.
the two adjacent, it says.
Yeah, the owner's here, but I have not had a chance to talk to him or look at the property or anything.
Okay, we don't have a valuation on those either. So maybe we'll just put that aside as well.
Well, at this moment, my recommendation would be no change because I haven't
Sure.
had any chance to look at them.
Okay, but I would like to hear from the property owners on that one. Everything else, right, do we have 550 Locust Hills Drive here?
I am representing some folks, but I don't know everybody's address like on top of it. Okay, that's not.
1620 Locust Hills Place. Okay. 450 Carpenter's Point. Four, ma- 430 no.
Yeah.
So it sounds, so folks, all of these need an inspection. We can't make a decision on them, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. So if you're here to represent a group, we're not going to be able to change anything. If you'd like to come up and speak in generalities, that's fine. You might want to share your thoughts with the county, because they're the only ones who can make a decision on this at this point without the information and the inspection. So if would you like to speak on behalf of? So you will need to, do you have a list of addresses that you're representing this evening?
I do, and they've been provided. I emailed them to Kathy earlier in the week, and I can list them now if you like.
I'll need your name, and your
Elizabeth.
address, and the addresses that you're representing here this evening, please.
All right, Elizabeth Oleg, 425 Carpenter's Point. Tom and Bonnie Schwabe, 430 Carpenter's Point. Janice, are you going to talk? Janice and Dave Ring, 420 Carpenter's Point. Mary and Rich Ostland, 520 Locust Hills Drive. Ellie and Bill Bathe, 560 Locust Hills Drive. Ashley, are you going to get up and talk? I'm going to also speak for the benefit, if possible, of Ashley Fleischacker, who is 415 Carpenter's Point. Our values have, in addition to what you heard from Scott, they have gone up exorbitantly, especially in the past 3 years. It's taken me some time, but I have pulled some data that show, by and large, our property values have gone up on average 60% in 3 years. I moved in 10 years ago. We built our home. We've made no improvements. And there's 47 homes in the neighborhood. It's reasonable that some homes will sell, and unfortunately, because there are sales in our neighborhood, even with some improvements that don't seem to be taken into account on this reevaluation, we are being kind of added, we are increasing our tax responsibility within the city a great deal compared to other neighborhoods within Wayzata, I feel. We all want to pay our fair share. We just don't want to begin to take on the responsibility of other homeowners when the values that they're being assessed aren't matching what their market value seems to be. And I state that based on a list of sales for a handful, 2021 to 2023. In many cases, I can point to where the sales price with a subsequent tax valuation, the tax valuation is significantly lower than what is deemed the market rate based on a sales price.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? I didn't follow that.
Okay.
Statement.
I deem the market value of a home to be actually what it's sold for. And when the assessed value for tax purposes is significantly lower, I have some examples where it's 20% lower. That is a shift of a tax responsibility to other homeowners. I have a list of current listings.
Can you give an example of a property that sold and the date of sale and then the
Yes,
tax valuation?
yes. I have an example here. 217 Walker Avenue, sales price of $2.629 million.
Is that Walker Avenue South?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
March of 2023 was the sales month. And the tax assessed value for taxes payable in 2025 is $2,034,000.
Do you have an example of that in your neighborhood?
I do. I have an example that goes the other direction in my neighborhood.
Mr. Smearden, again, it's all good information to have, but unfortunately, you know, these are discussions that really need to be had with the assessor in advance of the meeting.
But I feel like this is a city issue, and the assessment on my property is important, and I think what he can do is he and I can work together on the value of mine to be fair, but it needs to be represented throughout the city for it to be fair.
And we do. We represent the entire city, and that the property tax burden, I assure you, over the last 3 years of values throughout the city, the county, the state, and the increases, we have, I think, Locust Hills predominantly, as well as Highcroft was the other area that had the largest increases based on property sales. But you're definitely not alone in this. Throughout the city, the county, the state, and the presentations that the county put together, it has been felt by every property type and every property owner. And it is not targeting Locust Hills by any stretch of the imagination. I would like to get to the representative example
Okay.
of 217 Walker Avenue South.
Okay. Tim, do you have the example in Locust Hills?
Mr. Smearden, do you have we're putting you on the spot here, but,
Okay.
you know, curiosity's got the best of me at this point. Could you provide your professional
Thank you.
explanation and understanding as to?
So market value is determined based on an analysis of the market. It's not the exact sale price. That's not the definition of market value. So we are going to have some, and every year, every city, everywhere you look, you're going to have some that are assessed at less than the assessed value, or less than the sale price. You could probably just as easy as find some that are assessed at more than their sale price. When we set the assessment, we use a sales ratio, which the Department of Revenue judges us on. And that sales ratio every year, we target 95%. And that's the sale price, or the assessed value divided by the sale price, whatever that middle number is over the 100 and some sales that you have in a city. And we break it up between on-lake, off-lake, condos, townhomes, those are all analyzed differently. Every year, we have to meet that threshold of 95%. But as I said, we're going to have some that are lower and some that are higher. If you look at the other homes here on Walker, you know, they're all built around the same time. The other sale prices were not quite that high. So if you look at the whole of this whole little project here, we fit in where we should be. But that one is a little bit of an outlier where it's 600 grand over that was purchased for 600 grand over the assessed value.
Okay.
You had asked about one in my neighborhood that I would like to share.
Yes, please.
In March of 2023, it was, no, July of 2022, there was a sales price of $3.1 million on a home at 1615 Locust Hills Trail. The current tax assessed value for next year is $3.6 million. It's been a year and a half, and the value went up $500,000, according to Mr. Smearden.
So are you representing them?
I'm not
here this
representing
evening?
them, but you
Oh,
asked for
okay.
the example, so I wanted to share.
Oh, I was talking about the example you were providing on Walker Avenue where it's selling for one price and it's being assessed significantly less than that.
Yes, and I do have other examples if you would like more.
But what I thought I
Then I
heard.
thought you asked for one in my neighborhood, and I said I did, but it went the other way, so I was just
Oh, okay.
sharing that.
No. Okay, so this is one where the assessed value is significantly higher than
After
the sale.
a short period of, yes, after a short period
Okay.
of time, 18 months, yes.
Sure. Thank you. Yes.
And that's taking into account the market during 2023. This house was purchased in 2022. It saw a similar increase that everybody else did, based on the other sales, the comparable sales in the neighborhood. So that doesn't point out that there's anything necessarily wrong.
Right. Okay.
Now, I also want to share that here are some current listings on Zillow. Some are pending, some are recently sold. And if you compare the tax assessed value that was determined as of January 1 of 2024, I mean, some of these are $2 million different. Some haven't sold, and so I will gladly concede that it may not get this price. However, it's probably closer to this price than what the tax assessed value is if we're talking a $2 million spread.
So the cutoff is what for your assessed values?
So the sales study that the Department of Revenue uses, they study sales that go through September of 2023. So anything that's happened, I mean, that was 6 months ago. Anything that's happened since then will be used to analyze next year's values. If we are that low on the sale prices, that's an indication that we need to raise values. If they sell for less, it's an indication we need to lower values.
So you're following what people are willing to pay?
Yeah, we're
the
historians, if
properties.
you want to look at it that way. We're not trying to predict what it'll sell for. It's based on what actually happened and analyzing that to determine the value.
Okay. All right.
And I have one more piece of anecdotal information. These aren't people I'm representing, but it's how I can see assessed values within the community. My house backs up to Bushaway, and behind me is a home on Bushaway. The address is 433. It was a vacant lot in August of 2015 that sold for $3.2 million. Within about an 8-month period prior, December of 2014, there's a home, there's a lot of vacant land across the lake, also a lake property, 366 Ferndale Road. Both properties are about 2.1 to 2.3 acres, similar size on the same Wayzata Bay, both beautiful properties. They both sold around the $3 million range. One was 3, one was 3.2. Today, the land assessed value, one is $4.7 million, one is $8 million. The one by Bushaway is valued, the land assessed value is $8 million, total value $12 million. The property on Ferndale, land value $4.7 million, total assessed value $7.4 million. I am willing, I don't know, I'm sure both homes are beautiful, but when the market value of their sale of the lot was right around $3 million, right around the same period of time, now the land value is around a $3 million spread. I think,
Are you stating that not that it has any bearing on Locust Hills or anything else, and if you said it was just a land sale, so now now it's an improved property, there's a house built on it?
on both,
On both?
correct.
Okay, so are you talking just the land values have changed that much?
Yes.
So
3
we
million,
have
there's a $3 million spread on just the land value alone.
Okay.
Yes.
But we also recognize these are opposite ends of town with different land characteristics as well.
Well, the market value at the time of purchase, buyers deemed them similar enough to pay a similar price.
In 2015,
Yes.
8 years ago, 9 years ago.
We have to go by what's in the record,
I
which is what I'm
understand,
trying to do.
But we're here to talk about the values
Yes.
for the upcoming year. We can't look 8, 9 years. I mean, at the beginning of the evening, we were said, we can look at what is proposed, not what's happened in the past. And definitely, I think if you've lived here for 10 years, I think we can all agree our values as homeowners have changed everybody drastically. There are articles in the newspaper about the median price or the average price, I don't remember which, the median price, $1.1 million. That's taking into account condos that are 800 square feet in town to mega homes, on the lake and everything in between. We are we've always been desirable, but definitely in the last 10 years, the number of people that I meet that are coming to town, the houses that are being built, we are benefiting from our popularity and our desirability.
I am
so-
not trying to argue that there hasn't been a significant increase within Wayzata, totally, all around Wayzata. But it doesn't feel like the share of value is being treated equitably among residents.
I
That is-
would, and I take umbrage with those statements because every single homeowner who pays an equal percentage based on the value feels the same pain and maybe more. It is from the $200,000 condo that goes to $250,000. That's a big slice for that individual, right? That is a big jump for them. Similar to the houses on the lake that were before us last year that had significant increases. Every pocket within the community pays the same percentage share of their property value to the city.
I agree.
And your neighborhood, because of market conditions, has changed in terms of valuations. It may not be to the point that you like or that is correct, and maybe that requires some adjustment. But unfortunately, because we don't have all the information, we as a board can't make that decision this evening.
You just asked for me to bring you some facts and something that substantiates my position, and that's what I was doing. So I appreciate the time, I appreciate you listening, and I do hope that you can take this information and maybe evaluate the, assessment process. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mayor, may I speak?
You may, Kathy. Please go ahead.
So we had a very, very large number of residents last year,
And the year before.
and many little pockets in our community are going through the same thing as what this nice group of you guys from Locust Hill coming out together is amazing. My neighborhood in the last 5 years has gone through a transformation that I can't believe. 70% year after year after year. And so you, as you might feel that you're paying more than the 3.6%, I think that's probably a very small percentage. I think that most of us are paying a high percentage year after year after year. And what the mayor said earlier is that we have become a destination. People want to live in Wayzata. And with that, it's driving some of us out because of what's happening. And I wish I had a magic wand, and I wish I was smart enough and bright enough to figure out how to perhaps change that. But the market will drive where people want to live and what people are willing to spend. And so from my perspective, as a resident of 25 years, it's been very painful to watch and to have conversations with people in our community like yourself that go, I want to live here. I don't want to be driven out by the taxes. We as a council and the members of a board up here, really, I think what the mayor said is that there is a process for you guys to go through, and what will happen next is at the county level, please be prepared, like you are tonight, to speak your case. But it unfortunately is happening everywhere in our city, and again, I don't have the magic answer for that. All I know is that it makes me sad to have watched it, because there's people that can't live here anymore, and we feel, I can't speak for other, but I'm sure the same, I feel your pain, so.
Yep. Thank you, Kathy. Okay. We have a few other properties in the Locust Hills area, in the general area, but I don't want to overshadow. We have a resident here from 1340 LaSalle Street, Marissa Erickson. So, Ms. Erickson, would you like to come forward and speak to the board? Do you, or are you, maybe if you could come forward, and I could just, hate to put you on the spot, but I would like to either get your thoughts on the revised assessor's recommendation. Maybe we could put that to bed, and if you're okay with it, we vote on it. Or if you have other thoughts on the value.
I actually really appreciate what Kathy just said. It's really what I kind of wanted to say as well. And I did get to speak with Michael yesterday, and that was really nice, thank you. And last year, I guess I wasn't able to be here because we were on spring break, and I didn't know kind of all like the logistics that went into all that. So I'm not prepared with anything, but I guess I just really wanted to share kind of like what Kathy was saying, is that we're a very old home, 1913 built, and it's just kind of like one of those things, like my kids are the 5th generation to live in our home, and just like really just what Kathy was saying, just kind of, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Have you had an opportunity to have your property inspected by the assessor?
Michael did come yesterday, yeah.
Okay.
So yes, and he did explain to me a lot of the, like what the prices, because we live where I live, and like with Mary Lee, we live on LaSalle Street, and like that whole neighborhood is going through a huge transition. And it's really a matter of a lot of the old homes, which again I live in, Mary Lee lives in, they're just kind of like being sold and torn down. And so that's kind of where my home is at as well. And so my home is on a beautiful property. It's a really large spot. And my great-grandma bought it a long time ago. So it has its value, and it's just kind of like, I think the price that we saw, the increase that we saw last year, it was 50, or it doubled. It went from, our taxes went from 6 something to 13,000. So that was just a lot for us to see. And So like I said, I appreciate what Michael had to say. And I guess what I'm just trying to say, along with it with Kathy too, is that it's just a lot. So I don't have like a number in my head or anything, but when it went over $1 million, that was a really big shock, I guess, so.
So it's actually gone down from last year?
Yeah, I think you
It
said
has.
it went down 80 or 90, the valuation.
It was 1,178,500. The 2024 valuation is 1,088,000.
Yeah.
The building itself, the home, is only 24,000. It's all land value.
Yep.
So it looks like it's I don't have the dimensions, but a very large lot. Oh, it says lot size 38,447. Sorry, that's how many acreage wise?
0.88.
0.88. So a large, as you can see by what gets subdivided and
Yeah.
and then built.
I know.
So it's the value of the land.
Yep.
So it looks like the assessor recommended just a very
Yeah.
modest drop
Yeah.
to 1,084,000. If we were to vote on that, do you have any comments that you would still be able to go to the county?
No, I mean, would I like to see it be less? Obviously, yes, but it is what it is.
No, I understand. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. Erickson, representing 1340 LaSalle Street, the assessor did recommend very slight reduction to $1,084,000. Someone care to make a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. All right. I just want to make sure, we have a couple of other people. Sir, and I apologize, I don't know your name, in the gray sweatshirt, and then the gentleman in the front. Would you like to come forward? Was there anything you wanted to expand on, if you would, please? If you could introduce yourself with your name and address.
Yes, my name is Tim Hayden, here with my wife Deb. We live at 1620 Locust Hills Place. And I so appreciate the mayor leaving open for us to be able to address it with the county. I understand we can't do that tonight, so I appreciate that. You know, I was going to speak for some of the other members of Locust Hills, and I think Councilmember Iverson did a good job of saying that other neighborhoods have gone through this catharsis. And, you know, we somewhat as a neighborhood feel a little bit like, not like we've been targeted, like I heard that word say, but that we're bearing the brunt of recent movement in, you know, like my house being up 90% in 3 years. And I understand there's other stories like that, but I guess we're just here to kind of voice our opinion that, one, that we just think that it's, you know, like, I mean, we just don't know where it stops. And we understand that there are transactions that have happened in our neighborhood. I would caution in that, you know, there's lots in our neighborhood that sold for 400 grand and lots that sold for 800 grand when they were building the house. There's houses that have a view of the lake. There's houses like me that, along with my two neighbors who I saw did get their assessments dropped, who are on a cul-de-sac across from the train tracks and were 0.4 miles from the lake. So I understand that, you know, Michael has to do his job and, you know, uses an arithmetic average of recent sales, but there is definitely a disparity in the quality of the builds of the houses and the lot sizes, and mostly the kind of the cachet of how they move towards the lake and whatever. So just looking at the 44 houses of Locust Hills and taking the last 3 sales, and if they're up 30% from what, you know, the expectation of the neighborhood is. You know, I think that that we're a little concerned that, you know, if somebody sells for 5 million, you know, you're just gonna, everybody's house is gonna go up 30%. And we would just hope that it would be looked at more on an individual house basis, not like, well, there's 3 recent sales and we're gonna go by those and make a move. So do respect, you know, what you guys all have to do, but, you know, with our land values being up, I think it was 42% 2 years ago, or the last assessment year, and for this year, they're all up 29%. It just feels like there's not a real discernment among like which properties are on top of the hill that have a look at the lake and the ones that are maybe closer to more like on McGinty than they are on the lake. And so that was just a comment I'd want to make. I do want to put in a plug for myself because you guys said you like to see people up here and more residents here. I mean, my house, I bought for $1.5 million 3 years ago. Deb and I looked at it and we were laughed at by a lot of the people who, some of them in this room have passed on the house and said it was a mess, just in the layout, the construction. There's no, you know, like columns in front or whatever. It's right up on the circle. And the house was on the market for 15 months. Nobody bit on it at all until, I don't know, I guess we were suckers. We came and said, all right, we'll give it a shot. And, you know, we tried to Band-Aid it a little bit and we've done stuff to it. But, you know, 3 years later, the house is now valued at $2.9 million. That's up 91%. And per neighbor Scott Mann, you know, I never even have done anything like this because I lived in Edina and my house went up about 5% a year every year for 20 years. I bought it for $900,000. I put $500,000 into it, which means I had $1.4 million into it, and I sold it for $1.7 million. So I mean, it just inched up every year, and I don't really understand this process yet fully, but I'm getting close. But the net of it is that I just think that maybe I can work with the assessor and the county directly and do that. But I think there is a general feeling that our neighborhood is kind of under attack, and it would just be nice to know, like, okay, this is where it stops. But I would just say that the outpouring of people coming out and the amount of people that have come forward this year, especially from our neighborhood, definitely shows that we're concerned, and we're mostly concerned about where it stops, because 30% a year every year, that, you know, it gets very aggressive after a while.
I certainly appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Hayden. I can rest assured that Locust Hills is not under attack in any way, shape, or form. Certainly not intentionally by anyone at the city or at the county. And so what I do appreciate your willingness to work with the assessor's office. And in my experience, every single person at the office, I mean, they are bound by a code of ethics and, you know, by state statute and everything else. I mean, they do listen. They do. I've seen, you know, if you have a cogent argument and the proof and it can be substantiated, they work with you. They absolutely do. You know, when I'm going to go out on a limb here, I argued my assessed value last year, and they needed to come do an inspection, and you know, the same applies for every single person up here. But please, you know, do work with them, show them, help them understand the neighborhood, the intricacies and the nuances of the various homes. And again, in my experience, you may not like the outcome, but in my experience, how many people did the county work with where they don't even end up on this sheet because those questions are answered and the values are adjusted or assessed?
Honestly, I don't know what that number is, but I'd say it's close to half this year.
Half of
That's-
this number? Half of,
Half of the total, so probably that
Okay.
number, if not maybe a little more.
yeah. So, that they are willing to listen. It is, I hear you, we all hear you in terms of how difficult it has been year over year. And as Councilmember Iverson said, I mean, when you're seeing in one neighborhood a 50% increase or 60% or whatever it may be, it's impactful. Nobody denies that. And, as part of those property taxes, 19% of what is paid on an annual basis goes to the city. Everything else goes everywhere else. So we certainly recognize the impact that has on everybody, and we try and tamp down, our spending and where that money goes at a city level. But the one thing we don't have control over is how much people are willing to pay to come live here. And that is one of the driving factors of how we get to where we are today. So,
That is the main driving factor.
yeah.
Understood.
And-
It does feel, oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, and to your point, the more homes that I've gone into that neighborhood, the more differences I notice, which is why some people have gotten reductions, because, oh, this really is different, and not necessarily in a good way, at least not in an appealing way. So the more homes that we get into, the more we can build our mental database or actual database with all that information. In regards to your comment about being closer to McGinty as opposed to closer to the lake, we do recognize that, and the values are different as you go further north.
Understood. I will have to maybe let you in my house. I promised my mom I would never let her advice to never let an assessor in your house, and I swore to her that I would do that. So maybe we'll just have to keep that secret among all of us. But I would appreciate that, and I do believe that our houses are a lot different. And it's not just a neighborhood thing. There is spectacular houses in our neighborhood, and there's pretty good houses in our neighborhood that maybe only dummies like us would buy. But to have that go up 91% in 3 years, I mean, I didn't buy a house on the lake because I couldn't afford it, but now I seemingly own one. And, I thought that's what the houses that were on the lake that's like the numbers that I see for our neighborhood, like $3.5–4 million, that feels like a house that's on the lake. But anyway, I believe that the market spoke when I bought my house, and I'll take that up with you and the county, right?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
I
Hayden.
appreciate it. Thank you all.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say something before we get too far. All the people that are going to end up going to the county board, follow the directions on your valuation notice. There's a phone number to call. There's also an email address that you can send it in. It's not an automatic thing. You guys have to actually
Register?
sign up for it. So I just want to make sure nobody gets missed.
No, that's really good advice. So everybody here, please make sure you do that if you intend to go to the county to have your case heard, or your appeal heard, I should say. Okay, sir, I would love to hear from you as well.
Okay. Thank you. Oops.
I don't know about you, but I always have to keep mine real quick.
Yeah, keep them close, and I'll have to put them on here in just a second. My name is Chuck Griscorla. My wife Sharon and I live at 540 Locust Hills Drive here in Wayzata, so we're in that Locust Hills neighborhood. The reason I came out tonight, first of all, in terms of process, I did call the number, talked to Michael. Michael came out and has seen our house. He went through it also last year. And we had a nice chat, talked about valuations, and I never heard back, so I didn't know if my case was decided that it's not going to change from what it is or what, but I don't think we quite agree on things. In terms of facts, the facts I brought tonight were really a look at all of the properties in Wayzata that were sold in the last 12 months. and I have that list, and I've given that to Michael. And the point I want to make is that in Wayzata, there's a wide range of homes, home sizes, lot sizes. Some people are on 2-acre lots. We're on a very, very small lot. We're on one of the smallest lots in Locust Hills. We have a neighbor on each side. We have a street coming out right across from us. When the lot was sold, it was not one of the higher priced lots, okay? But that said, the average price per square foot in the last 12 months in Wayzata, excluding the lake homes, is $524 a square foot. Our assessed valuation this year went up 21%, and our home assessed valuation would be $600 a square foot. And I just don't think that's where it ought to be. I think $600 a square foot compared to $524 for all the other homes in Wayzata that I think are comparable to ours shows a big difference. Our assessed valuation this year is $3,100,100, so $3,101,100. At the average of $524 per square foot, our valuation would be $2,716,000. So that's data I shared with Michael. He's got all that. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I guess just one other data point. There's a lot of homes in Locust Hills listed there and all different prices. And the ranges are so wide, I don't really know how you decide this house is worth this much, this house is worth a different amount. But on an earlier slide, there was a home in Locust Hills listed that has been through the appeal process and had an adjusted valuation of $2,009,000. That home is much larger than our home. That's a 3-story home, ours is a 2-story home. It's a brick exterior, ours is a wood shingle exterior. So in terms of cost to build, much, much different. So again, if I'm being assessed at $3,001,000, that house is at $2,009,000. To me, there's something just not equitable there. So that's really the points I wanted to make.
Wonderful. Mr. Smearden, those are some of the factors you would take into consideration when you, because I don't see them 540 Locust Hills.
No, I thought I left it with you that if I found something that would change my mind, I'd call you back. So I apologize if there was, misunderstanding there.
Yeah.
So definitely not my intent to leave you in the lurch.
That's okay. And I probably would have come out here anyway, even if you'd said I didn't see anything to change my mind. But I'm glad I was here so I could see that other data point of $2,009,000 for a home that's larger and.
It is larger. There's no doubt about that. It's got a very unique interior, which I don't think would appeal to the public. So the appraisal is part art. It's, how does the home look, curb appeal, think of that type of thing. How it's, not decorated, but how it's built out inside. And it's part science, which is the square footage, all the quantifiable stuff. That's the easy part. It's the qualitative stuff that's a little more difficult to figure out. But after going through it, I felt like it should have a reduction based on its, I hate to say this because I'm not trying to insult that home, but lack of general appeal to the market. I know yours isn't decked out high end. We talked about that. You did your best to keep costs down when you built.
We did.
So.
Yeah, so just to respond to that, though, a little bit of the problem I have with what I'm hearing, so there's 3 homes, obviously, everybody knows, that were sold in the last 12 months or so in Locust Hills at around $3.5. At least 2 of those homes were extensively remodeled recently. One of them, somebody's talked about the $1 million that was put into the home. Just a short time prior to that project, it was sold for much in 2.5 or something like that.
2.15, yeah.
Thank you. So my point is, how recently a home's been redecorated, refinished affects the valuation of the house. We've been in our house 15 years. We haven't done anything in the 15 years, other than clean it, basically. So saying that our house has to be put on a par with a recently renovated home, I just don't agree. So to me, the data, the comparison I'm making to the house at 2.9 million is much more valid. It represents kind of the land structure value of a home in Locust Hills that people want to buy. And I'm sorry, but I'm very hard pressed to see 3.1 million valuation on our home, so.
But as you said, those homes sold for 3.5 and you're at 3.1. There is that difference for the updating. I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah.
part of the reason for the
And
difference in the valuations.
there's a lot of other differences too, boat slips.
Oh, absolutely.
We're on the smallest pier, and there's homes that have slips that are much larger, so there's a bunch of factors, but I think I made the points I came to make, and
Wonderful.
appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and sharing that information with us. So we do have this gentleman's appeal registered because he was here. I want to make sure we add him to the list, 540 Locust Hills Drive. Okay, wonderful. My sheet has turned into chicken scratch with everything we have here, but oh wow, that's much neater. But we did hear from Ms. Erickson. We voted on that, so that's at the top of the list there, 1340 LaSalle. I would like to hear, before we kind of package up the properties that require inspection, additional information, and work with the assessor, I would like to hear from Mr. Fleischhacker. Is he here? Good evening, sir. Would you like to address the board this evening, or would you rather we just put it with the others? If you would like to, absolutely. If you could provide your name and address, please, for the record. And it looks like it says 501 Bushway Road plus 2 adjacent, so I'm assuming there are 2 adjacent lots?
It's three lots adjacent to one another. 2 of them are vacant. And you might all be familiar with our property. Let's see, I don't remember when Hennepin County went through and raised our road of Bushway.
Oh, the project that just kept on giving.
Yeah, well, we were the only property that ended up flooded. The road ended up higher than our property. So we ended up spending the following year, for about a year, changing the elevation of our property to accommodate the road elevation.
I'm sorry, sir, could you give me a point of reference of 501 Bushway Road? I don't know visually where that is.
Directly across from the entry of Locust Hills.
Okay, so you're on the...
We're on the lakeside. We're on the lake.
Side. Okay, south of McGinty.
Right.
Okay.
And all I want to do, I think, what I would like to do with Michael is we started this process with Rolf Erickson when he was still with Wayzata. And during the road elevation changes, what happened was along came the power company that ended up putting all of their transformers and connection boxes directly in front of one of our adjacent lots, making it completely unbuildable. No way to access it from Bushaway Road. So I would like to talk to Michael about some of the valuation of this type of property.
Absolutely. Mr. Smearden, you arrange a time to work with Mr. Fleischhacker on that?
Yep, I've got your contact information.
Yeah, you have
I'll give you a
everything you
call
need.
Friday or Monday.
That's all I would like to, I'll email you with some more information.
Okay, sounds great.
That's fine. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, I really appreciate Mr. Smearden's comment. I would recommend register with the county so that your name, they're prepared to hear your case. If you don't need it, you don't need it, that's fine, but at least preemptively, everybody has their names jotted down and they're prepared to receive you and hear your appeal. In the interim, I'll work with Mr. Smearden and his team. All right. Let's see. 1429 Holdridge, we said we would include with the rest of the properties, correct? That will be
Yes.
preserved? Okay. And do we have, procedurally speaking, do we need to list out the assessor's recommended valuation in a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would say more clarity the better.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would concur, and along with any other information that the assessor think would be important to have as part of the record when they take it, or the clerk, when this goes to the county. But again, I think, Madam Mayor, the procedural action is to affirm the assessor's recommendation of assessed values for certain properties that still need either inspection or more time to review and consider materials that were submitted.
And list out the
List out
property
each
address?
property and the assessor's recommended value.
So do we have the assessor's recommended value for Mr. Fleischhecker's 501 Bushway Road and the two adjacent lots?
I can tell you what they are. So for 501 Bushway, it's 16,431,100.
16,431,000?
100.
Okay.
And then the one to the south of that is actually 523 Bushway Road,
Okay.
and that's 4,553,100.
Sorry, I was still writing. 5 million?
4,553,100.
Okay.
And then 500 Bushway Road is the one to the south of that. And that's 2,204,300. 2,204,300.
Okay. And the first one was 501 Bushway. And then how about for 540 Locust Hills Drive?
It is 3,101,100.
3,301,100?
3,101,100.
Oh my, okay, we'll get this.
Mayor, we have one other property. The homeowner just left, but there was one other new one for tonight. It was at 521 to 527 Broadway Avenue.
521 to 527 Broadway,
Correct.
okay. And what is the valuation for that property?
Sorry, I'm looking for it here. Oh, that's why, it's an apartment, so it's got a couple addresses.
Oh, no worries.
It's, so the official address that we have is 525 Broadway.
525 Broadway?
I believe that's what it's showing me. And that's 1,224,000.
But that is the property address of record to be able to preserve. I want to make sure we don't miss anything.
I can give you the PID number, then.
Oh, but that's,
Yeah, the owner matches. So the owner's name that was on the sign-in sheet matches what I have in our records.
Okay. Where is that located? Oh, on the other side of the bridge, on the north side? Okay. All right. And all of these, to be really clear, because that's the other thing over in Locust Hills, we have Minnetonka and Wayzata. All of these are Wayzata. Okay, we're 100% sure.
Yeah, because the people that live on the Minnetonka side would be going to the Minnetonka City local board, so.
I know, but sometimes we have folks that like to come and try and vote in Wayzata, but they're not from Wayzata. Or just make sure we're listening to the right appeal.
Yep, all of
Okay.
those that are up there are on the Wayzata side.
Okay. I mean, we're good neighbors with Minnetonka, but we're also rule followers. Okay. All right. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Madam Mayor, we do not. We haven't had anybody all night.
Do we have anybody else in the room that is not on this list already that would like to speak? No? Okay. All right. Do we have anybody on the list that isn't on, that's signed in, that is not on the spreadsheet? Or,
I believe we've covered everyone. You have Marilee Babcock on Reno.
yes.
Okay, then we're-
And she chose not to speak. She was fine.
That's everyone.
That's everyone. Okay.
Have you guys made a decision for 510 Locust Hills Drive? I don't remember discussing that.
Well, yes, that was on my list. You had reduced it, but did you have an opportunity to speak with the resident or the property owner?
I left him a voicemail and hadn't heard back.
Okay,
But I did go through it and did do an analysis, and that's the result of it. So I am recommending to reduce it,
down to 3,450,000.
yes.
Okay. So from procedurally, city attorney, if we were to make a motion to approve the assessor's recommended values, calling each value relative to the address,
So,
would we be okay there?
yes, Madam Mayor, I think you can take the group where more information is needed. I would take 510 Locust Hills Drive as a separate motion, though, because you're going to change the you're going to affirm the assessor's change there, that reduction. All the others, there is no change at this level.
Do I need to call out the assessor's recommendation on that group where we need more information?
You know, Madam Mayor, I would. It'll take some time, but I think it'll help the record be clearer. Many of those folks are here in the audience, and I think it would be good to call out the address, the assessor's recommendation, which is unchanged.
Okay.
And I think you could tee up that motion. I'd like a motion to affirm the assessor's recommendation for 425 Carpenter's Point at blah, 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 and go down through, and then
All right.
a board member can make that motion. But again, I'd take 510 Locust Hills Drive first separately.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right. Folks, keep me honest here, please. So we will begin with someone making a motion to affirm the change to the assessor's recommended value for the property located at 510 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,450,000.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. All right. This is the long one. Okay. So, let's someone care to make the motion to affirm the assessor's recommended values on the following properties? 425 Carpenter's Point in the amount of $3,573,900. 550 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,640,000. 1620 Locust Hills Place in the amount of $2,897,700. Property at 450 Carpenter's Place in the amount of $3,502,800. Property at 430 Carpenter's Point in the amount of $3,217,400. Property at 605 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,537,000. Property at 585 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,901,800. The property at 420 Carpenter's Point in the amount of $3,287,300. Property at 415 Carpenter's Point in the amount of $3,272,400. Property at 520 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,907,500. The property at 560 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,641,300. The property at 405 Carpenter's Point in the amount of $3,301,300. The property at 1429 Holdridge Circle in the amount of $692,100. The property at 501 Bushaway Road in the amount of $16,431,100. The property at 523 Bushaway Road in the amount of $4,553,100. The property at 500 Bushaway Road at $2,204,300. And the property at 540 Locust Hills Drive in the amount of $3,101,100. And lastly, the property at 525 Broadway Avenue in the amount of $1,224,000.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
You're not going to repeat that for me?
I could. It's all right here.
Is there a second? No. Please don't interrupt. We have a motion on the table.
A second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes.
Madam Mayor, I just want to confirm with our assessor and clerk that we got the full list there.
Yes,
According to my notes, we did. I just wanted to double and triple check.
as far as I can tell.
Okay, one nuance, 450 Carpenter's Point versus Place.
Right on.
Accept the friendly amendment. Carpenter's Point
Accepted.
versus Place? Okay.
So accepted on the second?
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Mann, we had voted on yours earlier, so it was already addressed. Yes. Yes, all of these preserve your right to continue the appeal process with the county. You may continue to work with the county assessor's office throughout that duration. Mr. Smearden will help guide you through that. So that's certainly, the recommended course of action. In addition to, we will reiterate, please contact the county and submit your names through that process.
So it looks like we had the owner from 337 Reno here, Mrs. Babcock. I don't know if you want to get her on the list, even though she didn't actually speak.
But
I understand she
indicated
was okay with,
She was fine.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But.
Just wanted to
yep,
make sure.
Thank you.
And so the people that I've worked with at this local level, when they go to the county board, it'll be a different set of eyes. we want to make sure that we're not stuck into some confirmation bias. It'll be somebody different. So it may not be me.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. Do you happen to have the date and time of when the county will be hearing these?
I can check. I believe it's June 17th, and they actually are technically open for 2 weeks, although I can't remember ever actually using all 10 days of it. We do recommend that you contact the phone number or the email by May 22nd, so that we do have some time to work on it. But yeah, they start on June 17th, and depending on how many people are there, it could go for 3-4 days, it could go for an afternoon.
Okay.
Last year, I think we finished up in one really short day, and then even a shorter day the next day. I think we were done in 2 days.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your work and your ongoing efforts, be it for you or for your colleagues, and for everybody who came out here this evening. So our last item for this evening is to adjourn and not adjourn.
Ah, dang it.
I know, but that's okay, because we love to poke and needle you.
I would ask, Madam Mayor, if there's anything we should add to this motion to adjourn. Mr. Smerdon?
No, I think just a simple, clean motion to adjourn will work.
All right, very good. So who would like to make the motion to adjourn or adjourn?
I'll make that motion for you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. We are adjourned.